What's up guys, Mike here, and today we're going to be talking about a grim subject, as you could see in the title. But the thing is, you guys have indicated that you like to learn about NBA history. So today we're first going to talk about the only time that an entire NBA team almost died on a plane crash. And then we'll go into what happens if an NBA team were to have a tragedy like that. And so, let's get started. On January 18th, 1960, the Minneapolis Lakers lost to the Hawks in St. Louis and prepared to board a plane back to Minneapolis. As the takeoff approached, a light snowfall began. Around this time, Lakers player Jim Krebs, in a scene that seems like it may have been a future inspiration for Final Destination, pulled out his Ouija board and predicted that the Lakers plane would have an accident. He urged members of the team not to board, but no one listened. At the time of takeoff, the plane held 10 Lakers players as well as staff members and family of the players and staff. The pilots were retired Lieutenant Vernon Ullman and Howard Guilford, two men who would soon become heroes, because soon after takeoff, the light snowfall had become a blizzard. Now remember, this is a private plane in 1960. It was nowhere near as equipped as a modern plane would be to handle this situation. And so, according to Elgin Baylor, here's what happened next. We were playing cards and then the lights went out and it got cold. And for a while, the pilot didn't say anything. And finally, everybody wanted to know what was going on, and he said the only thing that was working was the generator. Not the instrument panel, nothing. They couldn't see anything. Yes, the horrible weather shut down the plane's navigation system, so they had to rise higher in the air and use a compass to determine where they were going. After a while though, even the compass failed, which meant that the pilots had to rely on celestial navigation. The situation was dire, and it got even worse. The plane's windshield wipers failed, so Ullman had to reach out the plane's window and wipe the snow off the plane's windshield himself. He ended up with frostbite on his hand and half of his face. It was at this time the pilots decided that they needed to land, and fast. In order to determine a spot to land, the plane had to fly low to the ground to use headlights from cars as a navigation method. Various sources experiencing this said at times the plane had to swerve upward to avoid the ground and even an 18-wheeler. But still, somehow, the pilots found a perfect cornfield to land in, and they did it. In the middle of a blizzard, Ullman and Guilford landed the plane in a cornfield, saving everybody's life on board. As they got off the plane, they were greeted by the town's undertaker, who said, "Thought I had some business tonight, boys." Okay, and so I'm bringing you back for 1 second just to say, how crazy was that? Why doesn't this moment get talked about more? I mean, those two pilots were absolute heroes, and the NBA almost lost an entire franchise. And so, with that said, let's look at what would happen if a tragedy like that were to take place. According to the NBA, if a tragedy were to occur and a team lost 5 or more players at one time, then an emergency disaster draft would occur. This draft would be used to help the team who had the disaster rebuild in their time of need, and would also force every team that was not included in the disaster to protect 5 of their players. The remaining players would then be pooled together, and the disaster-inflicted team would now draft a new team from those players, with a maximum of 1 player drafted from each team. If teams could only protect 5 of their players, things would get very difficult in NBA front offices fast. Let's take a look at a few teams to demonstrate how hard these decisions would be. Miami is a playoff team this season and clearly does not want to rebuild. With that said, they have to protect Wade, Bosh, Dragic, and Whiteside, right? And they also have to keep Winslow. He's the future of their franchise, which leaves Luol Deng, a huge part of their current team, unprotected, as well as Josh Richardson, who has shown some nice flashes as a rookie. Oklahoma City, in their attempts to contend for the title, have a solid core of 5 players, but Cam Payne is a very young asset. With the team currently full of uncertainty about whether or not Westbrook and Durant will stay, Oklahoma City needs Payne as a backup plan. He could be a huge part of their future, but do they give up Cantor, a player who is a huge part of their current title hopes? Detroit has shown tremendous potential in this year's playoffs. That momentum would take a hit, however, when they lost Marcus Morris or Tobias Harris, and Denver is a team that is in complete rebuild mode, and thus has gained a lot of assets. But if the disaster draft were to occur, they would lose one of these players for nothing. Would they give up Gallinari in favor of protecting a younger player? And Will Barton has shown tons of promise as a 6th man, but Denver can't keep him if they also want to keep Gary Harris and Nurkic. So you can see, these decisions would be almost impossible to make. But with that said, I made the decisions anyway. which means my decisions might be a little flawed, but they're my best educated guess. And so here is a potential roster a team could get from this disaster draft. Now let's take a look at this roster. Again, full of tough decisions teams would have to make, like Sean Livingston. He's incredibly valuable to the Warriors, but it's either him or Andre Iguodala. And did the Cavs leave Delly unprotected or J.R. Smith? Like I said, the roster is full of tough decisions. And it's also kind of full of talent. It's not a championship contender, but isn't it pretty solid? Like, maybe too solid? I would rather have this roster over Philadelphia's. And so thank you guys for watching. I know, grim subject, but I think it was interesting. We'll be back to happier content in the future, and if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for continuing to support me. Really means the world to me, and if you haven't already subscribed, I think you'll enjoy it. You know, I make NBA videos like this. The only downside is you have to deal with me, but it's a small price to pay. And as always, have an awesome day, guys, and cue the music.
Wow.